kind of why I share my story to the world is if I was able to get through what I went through, then I know that anybody that's facing an obstacle can get through it.
Mm.
That they could see that light at the end of the tunnel because I seen it. Yeah.
So again, James, you already know how thankful I am that you're here to share this. I know
Thank you.
a lot of people already know your story, but for anyone meeting James for the first time that's listening, he had a very viral story that went off, and for very good reason. And I'm not going to do a proper introduction because I'll let you do that. So definitely, let's start with however you want to start the story about what happened that day,
Okay.
because as you just said, your wife said something of the sorts of, as long as you don't forget me. I think the premise right now is that you absolutely have not forgotten her. So definitely dedicating this to her. So
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
would love you to kind of get the ball rolling there.
Yeah, no, thank you. So, like I mentioned, we always walked. We always try to eat healthy, just really try to have a healthy pregnancy. And our normal routine that was walking. That was our one thing that we enjoyed together. And every time I would come home uh, from work, we would have dinner, or we would go out go walking, do our exercise, and then come home and make dinner. So it was either or, but we would always walk every single day. So it was our normal routine, and we found that time uh, very valuable. And the reason we found it very valuable, it was our time for us to connect with each other. Even having a long day at work, I would be able to come home and tell her how my day was. Uh, she would tell me how her day was, like being at home. She wasn't working at the time. During that time was COVID, and she worked for at Disneyland. So she actually worked at the main gate, main entrance, scanning tickets. And as you know, Disney was closed for a long time due to COVID. So she was out of work. So she was always home, and she would tell me like, "Oh, I went to my mom's, spent the morning there, or I went out to lunch with her and came home." But she would always be home, by the time I get home. She looked forward to seeing me, and I would come home and, just seeing her all the time, either catching her laying in bed or on the couch, on her phone. But it was just really nice to come home to her and be excited to go walking. So we would walk and catch up and, just talk about everything, just talk about life. We would talk about, our futures and, what we were planning on doing, once our daughter was born, and, just everything that you could possibly think about, like preparing yourself for parenthood. We talked about it, from education to, who we're gonna have the godparents for her baptism to, what color walls or decorations to how we're gonna raise her. Everything. We talked about everything. So it was really nice. I feel that with this pregnancy, it really drew on us closer. I know our bond was there, like was we're soulmates, but with our pregnancy, it our bond was it grew so much stronger, and we were so in the right page. So it was a blessing. And I remember that one day, the day it felt off, that the whole day it felt off, but decided, still go to work. I remember having a long day at work, coming home. I remember calling her and talking to her because we're, kind of much preparing for her arrival, my daughter's arrival. She was at that time, the moment of the accident. My wife was 1 month away of giving birth from her due date. So she was about 36 weeks. Yeah, 36. Yeah, 36 weeks. And I remember calling her and I'm like, hey, like, we need to, get everything ready. Who knows? Maybe, you might have the baby sooner. We don't know. We better be prepared than be not prepared. And we're talking about like her room, and we're talking about curtains, and we're literally talking about uh, curtain rods, like where we can find curtain rods, or nice ones that look nice in the room. And I was telling her where there's like a Big Lots like around the corner where we live, the shopping center, and let's go check out what they have there. And and then if they don't have anything, we'll just walk the long way out and come back home, and we'll get our exercise done and make dinner. And she's like, okay. So I remember like coming home, and she was sitting on the couch, and she kind of looked down for like not herself, but she was excited to see me. And I didn't know that, but a while back, my mother-in-law told me that that day she had really bad morning sickness, like really bad. Uh, but she told my mother-in-law that she was going to go home, expect me to, wait for me when she would get home, even though she wasn't feeling well. And I remember my mother-in-law was telling me, she's like, yeah, she didn't feel well. And I would kept telling her, I'm like, no, like if you want to just stay, like I'll take care of you or whatever, make you feel better. And she's like, no, no, no. James is coming home. I want to be home by the time he gets home. So even though she was not feeling so well that day, she was excited to see me. So she was putting aside, her pain to see me. And if I would have known that, I think I would have not made her go with walking. Maybe I would have made that, just like, what, let's just stay home and make dinner. But she didn't. She was excited to go on a walk with me. And we walked to the store. We didn't see anything. Um, so I told her, I'm like, okay, well, let's go the long way home. Um, let's go around the shopping center. There's like a street, and pretty much will takes us the back way, and we'll end up by where we usually walk all the time, which is it was always a residential area, which was very calm. So we would always walk there. Well, so we'll end up there and just make it back home and cook dinner. She's like, okay, let's do that. So I remember we're walking and we're going through the shopping center, and we're talking about the curtain rods, and we're like so bummed that we didn't find any good ones. And we're just talking about like where could we find some. And then I remember we kind of changed the conversation. We're just talking about like our future plans, about like excited to, work hard and, have a little house for ourselves. Like that was always our dream, like to have a little house for her, and I grew up in a home, and she grew up in an apartment. So I was always telling her how like growing up, like always had a backyard to run around and, be safe and stuff. And she loved that. So she wanted that for our daughter. She's like, oh, that would be really nice for us to have our home, and, she can run around and feel safe and, and feel like, hey, she's growing up in a house. So we always wanted that. And as we're leaving the shopping center, where it happened was like, there was like a Taco Bell, there was like an insurance office, and there was like a car wash, but it was like a big street. It was a main street. And as we're walking away from the shopping center. So we hear a screeching sound, and I remember at that time was during sunset. And we hear a screeching sound and then hear people screaming. We both turn around to see what was happening, facing towards the shopping center. And we see this vehicle just going like this and just lose control and hop onto the sidewalk. And was going straight at us. That car was driving so fast that we didn't have time to react. Like I remember both of us looking and we're shocked. I remember seeing her face. She couldn't believe it. We literally turned around and we're holding hands and we literally closed our eyes and just waited for that impact to happen. I remember like closing my eyes and just thinking like, this is how our life is gonna end. Like this is the end. And I remember like not feeling her hands no more. And then I just open them and I look over and I see the vehicle like just trampled her. I saw everything, every little detail. And as the car kept going, leaving my wife there in front of me, it was the hardest thing to see. The one that you love so much, the one that you promised to be with the rest of your life, just taken away like that in seconds. I couldn't do anything about it. Just like that, my life changed. I tried to do CPR. I was in the right state of mind. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't accept reality. I couldn't accept that this was really happening to me. It was like a nightmare that I just wanted to wake up. But I just wasn't. I remember like everything was such a blur. I didn't remember like people around me. I wasn't mentally there. I was going crazy. Just seeing my wife there, like just telling her, like, please wake up. Like, please, like, this can't happen. Like, we have so much going on. Like, why now? And like finally seeing like the ambulance arrive. And just like trying to tell them, like, please try to save my daughter. Or try to save my wife. Like, try to save my wife. My wife is 36 weeks pregnant. If you can't save my wife, then save my daughter. And because of COVID, I wasn't allowed to go with her. So I was literally there, like left there, and her remains literally left there. And I had no clue if she was alive, what happened to her, what happened to my daughter, nothing. But I was just left there with the image of everything that I went through at those very moment. I didn't walk over. I saw that car by that car wash. I didn't want to walk over there. I didn't want to see her. I didn't want to see that person because I don't know what I would have done. I don't know what I would have done. So I stayed behind. I stayed with my wife because that's what I cared about. And after a while, my in-laws, my father-in-law was working, my mother-in-law was home. My parents, they live in Burbank, so where it happened was in Anaheim. I moved to Anaheim for my wife. When we got married, she was very close to her family, so I made that decision to move with her and live in Anaheim so she could be closer to family. That's how much I cared about her. And so I couldn't have my parents just be like, come help me. So I called my mother-in-law, and I remember like trying to tell her what happened, and I wasn't making any sense. I look back, it's like, how can anybody make any sense? How can you put words to what happened? And I tried to explain to her and that this she took her away. She took her away. I just remember saying that to her, but she didn't understand what was going on. And I just remember just telling her, like, please, like, find a ride here, find a way. But I'm here. I'm here. And I told her the location where it happened. I remember she finally arrives, and I'm trying to explain to her, and she was already getting a sense of what was going on. And I think she understood, like, we're in an accident. Finally get the news of like where she was taking my wife. She was taken to the UCI over there in Orange County. And it finally making it to the hospital. When we get there, like right away, my father-in-law, like, I guess, like, met us there. And right away they take us to a small room, and I already knew that was bad news. Like, I was just embracing the news that I was gonna get. But I guess what I wasn't ready for it is to get that news in front of my in-laws. Like, I guess when they told me, like, when the doctors say that they tried everything, they tried to save my wife, and were unsuccessful. But she couldn't make it. She didn't make it. It was the hardest feeling. Seeing them, like seeing my in-laws break. It destroyed me. It killed me. Because I felt like, as a husband, I have to protect my wife no matter what. And I did it. It's like I felt like I let them down. Like when I married her, like them, like, like I knew how important it is, like taking that oath that you can protect their daughter no matter what. And I felt that at that moment, like I did it, that I couldn't do my job. And it destroyed me. Seeing them getting that news. And out of midst of all that, they finally told me, like, my daughter survived. And I was just like, what? What do you mean my daughter survived? Yes, when we realized, like, we couldn't save your wife, we had to do emergency C-section. And when they did the emergency C-section, my daughter wasn't responding. They did CPR, and they were able to bring her back. They right away put her like in a breathing machine so she could breathe, but she wasn't stable. But she made it through. At first, I just couldn't believe it. I'm just like, how? I just saw what I saw. I just saw this SUV just trample my wife. Did not make it, but yeah, my daughter did. I just couldn't comprehend. And then they're just telling me, they're like, well, we'll let you know when your daughter in a stable condition so you could see her. I'm like, okay, that's fine. And rest of her family came, and to explain to them like what happened, like I just I wasn't in the right mindset. Like I can't even grasp that this was reality, that this really happened. And to try to explain to other people, like it destroyed me. Like I went through so much, like try to lose the love of my life. And then seeing other people like just lose, you know, their daughter, their sister, their cousin, just their niece, losing everything. It was it was hard, and even though like I was going through all those feelings, like I felt alone. I didn't feel at that moment like I had somebody that can like hug me and just tell me like just really be there for me. Her family, like they're grieving because they lost her, but I didn't have anybody that was there for me to see if I was okay. But I didn't make it. I didn't want to put it in in that situation that it was about me too. Like I know they lost someone important in their life. And we all grieve different. And maybe I have to go through this pain alone. And I remember just being there, like sitting in those stairway, just going through the scenario, like playing in my head over and over and over and over again. It start like thinking, what could I have done different? What could I have done to avoid this? Maybe I should have not been a gentleman. Maybe I should have made her walk closer to the street, and I could have been the one getting hit. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should have not made that decision to walk the long way. Maybe we should have just went straight home. Or maybe I should have stayed 5 more minutes in that store. Or maybe not even go walking. I started playing those scenarios in my head, and it kept killing me. But I couldn't stop thinking like that. Finally, my parents arrived. And I remember her, like, our mutual friends arrived as well. And they checked up on me, just like, how are you doing? Like, how are you? I just couldn't help it anymore. I just cried. I just cried. I couldn't even talk. I just cried. I didn't have a chance to really, like, process everything that was going on. And they finally let me know, like, that I was able to see my daughter. I remember walking up to the NICU, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know like what I was gonna walk myself into. And then seeing my daughter like in a breathing tube and just like IVs running through her body. It was hard. It was hard to see that because it's like, even though I was grateful that she was alive, but to see her that way, to come into this life that way, my daughter didn't deserve that. We all didn't deserve this. She came into this world forcefully. She wasn't ready. But because of this woman and her selfish acts, forced her to come into this world 1 month before her due date and to come into this world this way. She didn't deserve it. I was taking so much from me. I look forward to that day to give birth, to be by my wife's hand, to be by her side, to hold her hand as she gave birth. I look forward to that. I was excited for that. I didn't experience that. This woman took so much from us. But start remembering that at least she was alive. That I have her here. And what I learned that everything that happens in life, you have to see the positive in everything that you do. No matter how bad it is, like you have to see the positive in life. And made me realize like I still have my daughter with me, that she's still here. And just seeing her like just fight, like she literally had her breathing tube removed in 3 days. It only took her 3 days to breathe on her own successfully. Like she had jaundice because that was common, especially for preemies. She had it for like a day. She overcame that. I mean, any obstacle that was thrown at her, she she overcame it. They're worried about like would she be able to feed on her own, and we literally trained her. I remember I was always there. I'm blessed for the medical staff and the UCI. Like I give them my world to them, like for them to save my daughter and to like take care of her the way they did. Like, I like the nurses there, doctors, they were there. They understood my situation. They guided me. They always like taught me what to do. They knew like what I was getting myself into being as a single father. Like even though like we took classes, we prepared, but we prepared as a couple. Now it's just me. So they they always tell me they're like, okay, we're gonna do some therapy classes at this time. Just be here, and I would always go. I would always be there, and it was such an amazing time to be with her, but it was also very difficult The reason was so difficult at the time is even though I had my daughter at the hospital, I was still taking care of funeral arrangements,
Mhm.
taking care of family of her family, and trying to be there for them, and try to do so much. And it was so much going on that I didn't have that time to grieve, like to fully grieve and to fully like let out my emotions. I never had the time because it was always doing something. And I remember it was such a chaotic time that I didn't really have that me time to kind of just cry or just let it out. And but when I was with my daughter at the hospital, I just I did anything possible so I didn't feel uh, sad, depressed, anger, any of those bad emotions in front of my daughter. My daughter went through so much. I would never want her to feel the pain that I went through. So it was important for me to always stay positive because I knew that during that time, it's the most important. It's just what I do at that time will define her future. And didn't want her to be filled with negativity and then have a bad impact in her future life. So for me, I wanted to make sure that I was stay positive. So when visiting my daughter, I was always happy. I was always excited to see her. Even though like inside it was killing me because I was just like, how am I enjoying her and my wife is not here? Like how can I be holding her when she had the chance to hold her as well, and now she can't? She won't even have the chance to ever meet our daughter, and vice versa. Like my daughter's never gonna meet her mommy. She's always gonna miss that, and it would destroy me. But I try to stay positive. I try to stay happy for her. I remember like the nurses were teaching me how to change a diaper. Because I remember like I would tell a little side story. I would tell my wife, when we're expecting, I was like, I'll do everything. I'll help you, but I won't change a diaper. Like I'll even give you money, as long as I don't change diapers. Like that was like my condition. And she would laugh. She's like, no, you're gonna learn. It's like, no, no, no. I'll do anything so I don't change diapers. I'll do anything. I'll stay up every night. But she would just laugh. But now that, I was by myself, it was like, these are the cards that I'm dealt with. Like I gotta do the best of it. And I have my daughter. My wife gave her life to save her and to save me. So I need to dedicate my life to make sure that she has the best life possible. And to this day, I'm trying to do that. And just, seeing her how she like would fight every single day and like um the doctors would tell me they're like, oh, we're probably gonna release her in a couple months, see how she's doing. And I'm like, okay, okay, like whatever's best for my daughter, like I'm cool with it, like I'll be here no matter what, always be here. And I remember they told me they're like, we're amazed by her determination. We're amazed by how strong this baby is. Like we told you months, the way she's going, we might let you take her home in a week. I'm like, what? Like in a week? I wasn't prepared for that. I was already getting prepared for like months in advance. Like, no, you might take her home like in next week. And I'm like, what? They're like, okay, we'll get plenty of sleep. I'm like, okay, for sure, you know.
You got some diapers to change.
Yeah. And when they tell you get your sleep, because they weren't joking. When they had a routine at the hospital. They had a routine like every 3 hours they would feed her. So I was like, oh, that's cool. Every 3 hours, that's cool. Once you take them home, it's a whole different ball game.
Was it like every hour? What is it?
Oh man, yes. Oh my gosh. When I brought her home, I'm like, I was nervous, you know, like I was like, man, this is me. But you know what? Whoever, you know, many single parents are listening, you know, you learn this, that as a single parent, quitting is not an option. So for me, it was not an option. You know, she relies on me. You know, she needs me. So I'm gonna do anything possible. And I remember every hour, she would cry. I would pick her up, hold her. I'm like half asleep, couldn't even really sleep. And then I would go to the kitchen with the other hand, trying to warm up the water, and then try to pour the water into the little bottle, and then get the little spoon, like a formula, and trying to mix it with holding the baby, crying hysterically, like she's hungry. And I'm like, oh. And then once I prepare the bottle, like walking back to the bed, getting her into like her position to feed her, and then feeding her, and then burping. Oh man, burping. That's another thing
Yeah,
too,
it's a
you
whole
know?
other thing.
Oh my gosh. And then burping her, and then she finally burps. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Put her to sleep. So then make her go to sleep. So then she would finally go to sleep. And I'm like, oh great. Now I can rest. Literally like 10 minutes later, crying again because she's hungry again, and doing it all over again. I swear, I remember like the first week, I didn't sleep. I was a zombie. I didn't sleep like at all, like at all. Like it was just constant. I would find the time to eat and stuff. Like it was really bad. And I remember like one day I would call my mom. I'm like, Mom, like, can you come like watch her just for one day? Like, let me just get some sleep. I haven't slept for a week. And even though she was taking care of her, like just hearing her cry, like the father instinct, like the parental instinct kicks in, and you wake up and you're like, oh, what's wrong with the baby?
Mm.
You know? So it's like I would never really get some sleep, but it was just like, you know, I knew it was part of it. And it was definitely hard. You know, I know how like as a as a duo, you know, as a couple, like you can get it done, you know, you could take turns and stuff. For me, it was like I don't have that option, you know, and it was tough. It was tough, like raising her, you know, but I did what I best I could, you know, and changed diapers. And now, trust me, I'm like the fastest guy to change diapers. I swear, like
The fastest
I'm
diaper
the pro.
changer.
Yeah, like I'm a pro now. You know, like changing so many diapers. But you know, I felt that those times or those opportunities was time for me to bond with my daughter. Like I value those moments. You know, I valued, you know, bathing her and changing diapers and changing her and dressing her up cute. And I'd always think of like my wife, you know, like she would always tell me, she's like, make sure that she's dressed up. And it was so crazy because like now that I look back and just the little advices that she would give me, it was in a sense like she knew her faith. She knew something was going to happen, and she was preparing me. It's crazy to say that. And the reason I say that is that when we're expecting, she would always tell me, she's like, if anything ever happens to me, you know, just make sure that you're there for her, that you give her the best advice, you know, that you know, dress her up nice, that you make sure that you comb her hair nicely. And I'm like, why you talk that way? You know, like, why are you talking like, you know, like something's going to happen? She's like, I don't know. Like, you never know. Like, when I'm giving birth or something might happen. You know, she was always thinking that way. And I'm just like, why you think that way? You know, like I was always a person like, no, think positive, you know, like
Mm.
And she's like, well, you never know, like you always want to be prepared. And she would, yeah, give me a little advice, like, and I look back now and like those little things is like, she was like preparing me for this moment. And just going through, raising my daughter without her, like at times, like I couldn't help it but cry, like sometimes I would cry with my daughter and stuff. Like I'll put music, I would put my wife's like favorite music on with my daughter, you know, um, I guess my wife would listen to music and she would put like her phone like on her wound and stuff and like let the music
Mm.
play so I feel like the baby was listening, and I would play music and she would get excited. She would get so happy. And then I would get emotional, and just cry. And I remember just like bawl and just be like, just thinking to myself, like you could have been here, like
Mm.
I'm here enjoying our daughter. You could have been here enjoying us. Like, and I just think back, like what you would have done, like I knew that she would have been taking 20 million pictures with her, and enjoying every moment, being super overprotective. She would have done all that. And over here, like enjoying her and looking at our daughter and it just seeing her, and no matter like how much I'm there for her and how much I'm guiding her or trying to be there for her and being the best father possible, like she'll never knew her mommy. And that's like to this day, like it still gets to me. Like it still kills me because no matter how much I do or how many good deeds I do or, pictures or memories that I try to create, like there's always going to be that little void, you know, that she's going to be missing. And I hope that, I stay strong, that I continue doing, being a positive influence and role model for her. And I hope that, when she's old enough and she understands, that she can look back at these kind of moments and hopefully have an understanding of like what I went through to be able to give her that good life, to give her that positive uh, mindset that she needed to continue growing. Like I know that our, my wife is watching over us and protecting us and guiding us. And I know in everything that I do, I kind of like tune out and I ask my wife, like, am I doing the right thing? Is this the right path that, you want me to take or guide me? Sometimes I'm clueless. Like I'm clueless. Like I don't have solutions, to any ending day problems that arise. Sometimes I don't have the solution. And I literally, talk to her and just ask her like, guide me, get me out of this situation, do what's best for us, for, our daughter's sake. And it's always like I always feel like this voice or this like feeling that she's talking to me,
Mm.
and I know that's right. It's kind of like that, like that's her telling me what to do and I just do it and it works out. Like it's it's crazy, it's crazy. I believe that, I that she talks to me in a way, and
Isn't that ironic at the same time? Because you said there's that void that she's not there, but she is there.
yes, yeah, and I think that's what I realized. Like even though she's not physically here, she's still spiritually here.
Mm.
And I think that's what I needed to realize.
Mm.
I realized there was that void of physically being here and accepting like she's gone and there's no way of coming back, but she's still here spiritually. Like she's still here with us. Like I
Right.
might not see her, but she's next to me.
Yeah, the invisible string.
Exactly. So for me, once I started realizing that, like it helped me get through a lot of stuff. Like it really helped me. And watching my daughter, like just going through what she went through in the hospital, like it made me realize, like my daughter gave me the biggest advice that I could possibly ever receive. And that advice was if she was able to get through what she went through, then I can too. And then that made me realize like if she got through that, if she was so determined to live, to be there for me, then I need to fight for my own life as well. My wife like gave up her life to save my daughter. My daughter's saved, she's healthy, and then seeing her get through that and just now walking normal, the doctor's telling me like she's normal, there's no issues.
Mm.
uh Before, when everything happened, like they were telling me like she might have problems, but so far she's overcome every obstacle. So learning that, learning those, like you said, it's like that cycle. Learning like if she was able to get through it, I could get through it too, and be able to share that to the world. And that's kind of why I share my story to the world. Is if I was able to get through what I went through, then I know that anybody that's facing an obstacle can get through it.
Mm.
That they could see that light at the end of the tunnel, because I seen it.
Mm.
you know it was easy for me to just hide in darkness and just give up.
I know, as we were speaking about earlier, hiding in the darkness and giving up is often the easier option, as weird as that sounds.
Yeah, it is. It's easier just to do that,
Mm.
just to give up and do nothing. But like I said, giving up is not an option. So
Have you felt like you've grieved? Because I know you, from your unique story, it's wild because when you go through death, it's like, okay, it seems like the bus stops there, but life is driving the bus, and life keeps going. So when you went through all this, you still had the funeral, you still had the interpersonal relationships with people, and you didn't have time to grieve because you were up all night, caring for your daughter, this, that, and the other. So have you felt like you have had time to grieve? A grief never ends, of course, but
yeah, my grieving process, I would love to had more time to grieve. Uh, like I mentioned, I was always with my daughter, and when I'm around my daughter, I made sure that I don't show those emotions. There's always positive reinforcement. So I never really had that time to like just be myself in those moments of like just grieve until I felt better. It was more of like I had to find those times.
mm,
So when I found those times was when my daughter was sleeping more. I would literally, or my daughter would spend time with my sister-in-law or my mother-in-law or my parents. Like they would spend the night. That give me time to kind of like to grieve. So I would find those times, or when I'm driving somewhere, I would listen to her music and just bawl my eyes out. And I would cry, cry, cry. I remember like when I started working again, like those were my times. I would literally walk into to work, my eyes shut, like bloodshot red, because all that crying that I was doing. And or I would go home, like I would come home and my mom was like, "Are you okay?" It's like, no, just like I was just just kind of letting my emotions out. Those were the times that I kind of let go.
your little
But
grieving windows.
yeah, my grieving windows, but it wasn't healthy enough. Like I know that this is not the healthiest way. I know that we need time to grieve. I wasn't given time. it was more of like I was given in a position that I had to step up to be a single parent, and that's it. And I wasn't given that chance to fully grieve, and I know that I missed that, and I know I need that. Like I got opportunities to see therapists and stuff, and I need to do that. I know it's like definitely something that it's that I want to get done because I feel that I do need help in a sense, just to be able to kind of I don't in a sense I'm looking I want to look for like professional help in a sense of like how to be able to um I would say deal with it in a sense of like it doesn't affect me long term,
Hmm.
and affecting me long term can affect my daughter. So I don't want that to happen. So it's more of like I'm learning to deal with the pain now. I'm learning to, you know, uh just keep fighting. But I know that for sure, like I do need that kind of, that support that I definitely need to grieve properly so it doesn't affect me long term.
Yeah,
So
it's powerful that you're looking at it that way. Once again, it always reverts back to your daughter. But that's the one thing about grief. I think trauma and just pain, the shit we go through in general, it's always in the moment because that's always important, obviously. But the long term effects that trauma and stress and not really expressing full emotions that pays a toll. And unfortunately, sometimes you don't learn it down the road. So it's impressive that you know that. I mean,
yeah.
we're in a different boat. I'm like 20 years down the road. And I'm still not. I feel like I'm not fully healed, but I think you've given meaning. You've given meaning. And at the end of the day, that is so important to getting through anything like that. But you had having no time to grieve. It's like, how do you find? Is it therapy? Is it finding those grieving windows? But another stacked question I wanted to ask you, based on what you said earlier about you're replaying how it went down, asking yourself, should I have done this? Should I have done that? What other emotions, because what emotions did it come with? Because like it seemed like guilt was a part of it, but like was there a besides sadness, were there any contradicting feelings that you had that you remember that you still have? Because with grief often it seems like all these different sorts of emotion come out of one, whether it's anger, this and that, and it seems like an emotion that you shouldn't feel with death. But did you have those emotions of guilt, and if so, how did you get through that, or how are you getting through that?
Yeah. I mean, guilt for sure. Like I felt like, you know, um, played so many scenarios, like I felt like maybe I should have pulled her close to me, maybe I should have hugged her, like things like that. So that definitely got to me, definitely affected me for a long time, very long time. And uh yeah, there was a long time that I couldn't sleep because all I kept playing was like different scenarios and what I could have done. And I felt guilt, I felt anger, like this woman, you know, being selfish, not caring about others, getting behind a wheel, driving intoxicated, and just taking my wife's life and affecting us, like my daughter, like without a mom, like, it's just it's crazy emotions, like it's all these emotions that, I still go through. And I remember that a very long time, and I still go through this feeling like every time I see a sunset, uh, during summer, especially, like it's always around. It was like it happened like around 7 o'clock in the evening, and I always remember that seeing the sunset, and it just brings me back to that state of mind that I was in. Like I didn't know what was going on. It was like a nightmare. Like I was just like, man, when am I gonna wake up? When am I gonna wake up? And it wasn't happening. Just going through all those mixed emotions. Like, yeah, it was taking a toll. Like it was destroying me. But I try not to let that like change my mindset when I was with my daughter. Like I think it's just like everything. Like I care about my daughter. So it's like I put her first. Like no matter what I do, like even if it, you know, don't have time to grieve, as long as she's like happy and, has love and, happiness and, laughter, That's what important to me. But I know like I definitely need, more. I would love to have more time to grieve and stuff. And I would love, you know, even though it's already been like over a year now, like I haven't had that fully chance to kind of like unwind. Sometimes there is times that I gone to like her where she's buried, and I drop my daughter off to like my in-laws, and I just go and I kind of spend the whole day there and kind of just like let it out.
Mm.
I have those moments too, but I just try to, in a sense of like, I try to find ways to give like a quick fix, like a quick like medication to heal
Yeah.
quick, but I learned that the pain is always going to be there. Like no matter what I do, no matter like how many therapists I go see, like the pain is always going to be there. But what I learned is that you start learning to live with that pain. That pain will never go away, but you just have to learn how to live with it, and I'll have my moments, and, I sit back and I'm like, I reflect, and, but I always come back to talking to her. I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm just thankful for, the life we had, and hopefully I gave her the best life possible. And I'm making her proud, and as long as I'm making her proud and, doing exactly what she would have done if she was alive, then that's what matters. That's what I care most about, and I was gonna say, like, hmm, totally lost my train of thought, but
But
it just,
you really gotta realize you're doing it. Like I mean, I've only known you for a short period of time now, pretty much as we're speaking for the most part,
yeah,
but you've already got it. You've got so much down that I'm thinking back to my mom with so many things, and take everything I say with a grain of salt, because what the fuck do I know? But like one thing with my mom is, and I'm relating it to what you're telling me is, and I didn't know this till later on in my life, that she had similar grieving windows. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there, plenty of parents that can relate to this. But from my perspective as the son, I see my mom doing one thing and she's holding it together, like you're holding it together for your daughter, holding it together. And I saw my mom cry plenty of times. But as I got older, she would tell me, yeah, when I would like leave the house, that's when she would take that grieving window and just let it all out. And what I was always not concerned about, just thought about, and how I'm seeing it with you is she always had the children on her foresight, which kept her going, which seems like it's the same thing with you. But at some point, you really do it. You have to look out for yourself. And in return, which you've already hit the nail on the head, looking out for yourself is to the benefit of your daughter. So it's like at the end of the day, like,
yeah,
look out for yourself too. You know what I mean?
yeah,
If you gotta
yeah.
figure out how to let it out like you are, yeah, you got to do that. And it seems like you are doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm definitely, trying to, yeah, exactly. Just trying to, focus on myself as well, and that's what I'm doing. I was,
It's gotta be hard though. You're raising a child. It's hard, right?
it's been difficult. I that's why I say like I give respect to all single parents out there in this world because it's not easy. It is not, and I admire every single parent, out there, single parent out there that are doing it on their own.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah, and many like have multiple kids, and I'm like, I can barely handle my own,
Yeah.
and I can only imagine like more, So it's crazy. I give them much respect, to all single parents. It's not easy. It hasn't been easy. They say it gets better as they get older. I feel like now that she's walking, it hasn't gotten any better. But I'm just blessed to have her. Uh, I'm trying to do everything best for her. So I was working like full time, uh, and it was taking a lot from me, my personal time with her, and I felt like that was kind of in a way affecting her, because I was kind of like noticing like she was growing a stronger bond with like my parents, because
Mm.
she was taking care of them like while I worked, and I would see her when I could, when I got off of work or on the weekends, like I would spend every second when I'm not working, I was be spending it with her, but it wasn't enough. And I'm just thankful for like the position that I finally was able to be into. And I haven't really talked about this part of my life, is that I'm thankful for, all my followers, all the support that I've been getting, just people being there for me and people reaching out and just seeing how much my story impacted them in such a positive way. And it feels good and it feels amazing to me to hear that, because now sharing my stories and helping others, it really makes me feel good inside and be able to be like, you know what, this is my purpose. I'm able to help people or give back to the community, give back to my supporters in a sense. So I love to sharing my story, but I noticed that like that time with my daughter and I wanted to spend more time. And like I mentioned, having such a large following, which I'm blessed and thankful to having, is giving me the opportunity to quit my job full time, be home, and give this influencer job a go, in a sense of be able to be there for my daughter, be able to work from home, spend so much time with her, and be able to kind of make, I would say, some income to have a roof over my daughter's head, which is the most important thing. Like as long as I can give her everything that she needs and wants and be able to be there for her as much as I possibly can, then that means everything to me, and I'll do anything possible to do that. So I quit full time and now I'm home, and it is a lot of work. Don't get me wrong, it is a lot of work and juggling to make some income, and then on top of that, taking care of a daughter. It's hard, and trust me, I have zero time, like zero me time, and I only have time to, I'll take care of my daughter, like here and there, like I'll pop in and out, like social media, just check to see if, like what I can do. And then it's always like full time taking care of my daughter, and now I want to, get my YouTube going, I want to do like a daddy blog. So, trying to edit and taking care of my daughter. So it's definitely been a battle, but I'm just blessed to be home with her. That's what I'm blessed. So I'm blessed to have this opportunity to be able to be home and do what I can, and make us in a way of a living and be able to provide for her and, have the benefits of being there for her. So it's been a blessing. It's been definitely a challenge, but I'm just grateful and thankful. It's you know what, like I think it's something that I'm gonna have to go through that. Like I just recently got news that it's been still in pre-trial right now, the process, but they're moving into trial now because I guess the judge decided not to keep extending, because I guess the defense counsel have been extending. So now I got to a point that they just want to move forward with trial already, and it's gonna get to that point when I have to see her and go through that now. So it's like now it's a new thing I have to face now. Now I have to go through that part of my life of going to trial and seeing her and seeing the process and what the outcome is going to be. And I never got to that point of thinking like, would I ever forgive her? It's one of those things, like she was so careless and so she only cared about herself, and she's selfish. So to me, it's just like, why would I have pity for a person that didn't really care about my wife, about my daughter not having her mommy? Like, why should I care about that person when clearly they didn't care about anybody but themselves? So for me, that's kind of the mindset that I'm at right now. And I know that maybe down the line, I need to forgive, forever to move on and stuff. But I think it's just seeing how much it affected us, my daughter and I and my family and my wife's family. I feel like I try not to think about that because I don't want to deal with it yet. I think it's one of those things like until I do, like I'll see what I do. But until then, like I try not to think about that lady. I try not to think about the child. It's kind of like I don't know. Like I don't know like if I would forgive, like I don't know if I would, just move on in a sense. It's I think it's just the pain is too fresh in that sense to think about.
100%.
And I feel like uh I know I'll eventually have to face it. Like I know like now that's gonna move into trial now and I have to be there and it's gonna be tough for me. But I guess it's just one step at a time and until that moment then, I just have to get my mindset ready for that. But until then, like I just try to do my own thing and stuff and try to just care about my daughter.
That's what
So,
you're doing.
but
Yeah, that's that. I mean, I was just curious because I've heard so many. I feel like that's always been the cliche thing, and when someone's a victim of something about forgiveness, and in my head, I don't even know how. I mean, I don't even know how you forgive someone for that. I can't imagine. Obviously, I have no experience with that, but it's just frustrating when it's something so preventative. So if there's an avenue for you to put attention to something that's so prevalent, like even in my life, I mean, for some people that in my life that still kind of like dabble in that, it's such a preventable mistake. It's such a preventable mistake
yeah.
that it's frustrating. So I commend you for the avenues that you're taking, and you have some plans for kind of bringing attention to being a single dad and trying to help people. Your wife, obviously, and drinking and driving. You're trying to bring attention to that, right?
Yeah. So, by sharing my story, like it definitely opened a lot of paths that I want to take. I want to be able to help as much as possible. Being just a positive influence in this world. I want to be like an advocate about drinking and driving because I hear it all the time, and people reach out to me, and I hear in the news as well, like other stories that has happened, and it just reminds me of my story. Of like of them losing their loved ones, because of this selfish act, and it really comes down to laws not being strict enough. I feel like that is kind of like a slap in the wrist. If you make the laws stricter and make it more fearful, then the people will think twice. They're like, man, if I get in behind the wheel, it's gonna be really bad for me. I don't want that. And I feel that if we start caring about others and not having that selfish mindset and be able to just care about any stranger in this world, I feel that it would avoid that too.
Mm.
It would avoid that in the sense of like, you know what, I'm not, all there to drive, you know, I care about other people and I don't want to put other people at risk. Let me just get an Uber ride, let me just get my Lyft ride, like there's so many different things, and I feel that if we start changing our mindset and really caring about each other and others, I feel that that can void a lot. And that's what I try to, talk about, that we should start caring about each other and and just really be the importance of like not getting behind that wheel intoxicated, and then also like talking about, being a single parent, being a single father, I would say, and many people out there, know that many single fathers out there don't take the opportunity to be there for their children, or a lot of fathers decide not to be involved in their children's life and miss out on such great opportunities, which is sad to hear because I hear it all the time. People reach out to me all the time. I wish, my baby daddy was more involved in my children's life, and it breaks my heart because like they're missing out on such a beautiful bond, like the bond that I have with my daughter. Oh my gosh, like
Especially a daughter,
yes,
Yeah, I'm no
like
knocking any sons, but
yeah.
the father-son thing is something powerful.
Or that's a different realm.
Yeah.
Like when they're born, it's daddy's girl.
Yeah,
Like
for real.
it's embedded in their head. That's daddy's girl. Like that they look up to you as a protector. Like
You're the male figure. That's a big deal.
exactly,
It's a big deal.
exactly. It's like this guy's gonna protect me my whole life.
Mm.
So I'm like that bond is like built.
Yeah,
Like
it's real.
it's born with that built. So it's like, how do you not want to miss out on that? Like the way she like hugs me, like every time I pick her up, she like just gives me this strong hug. The way she looks at me, like sometimes I'm like talking and she just stares at me. Just stares at me. But they say like those are the moments that they like want to tell you that they love you. Like that's their bond. Like they're just showing you their affection to you. And like sometimes I'll be talking in a conversation with other people, and she'll just be staring at me, mesmerized. And it's just like it's beautiful to see that, like the bond, like do everything with her, like everything. And it's so happy to see that.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Dead Talks. Please do not forget to hit the subscribe button and also the notification bell. That'll give you updates as to when we post a new video, more episodes, and more content in general. We are streaming in all the major podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and all that. And also find us on Instagram at Dead Talks Podcast or www.deadtalks.net. Thank you so much.